How long has it been since you and I have been in the same room?
In the same room?
It's been a long time.
Oh, God. 2 years.
2 years? No, it's been more than 2 years.
You think so?
When's the last time I saw you?
In person?
Yeah.
At a Trump event.
And that was, what year was that?
2020.
That was leading up to the election?
Yeah, that was summer of 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had a closer seat than I did.
That's been what? That's been a while.
That's been a while. You remember?
We've talked on the phone, though.
Well, that's true, but we just hadn't seen each other, so I got to be honest, I was a little nervous. It was the same way when we had Andrea Lindenberg, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I hadn't seen her in a long time. I don't know. I get anxiety. My anxiety is like so much worse since when you and I are working together. Oh, it's bad. I mean, panic attacks and all kinds of stuff. It's crazy.
You're full.
No, I swear.
Really?
I swear it was a whole thing. It's gotten better, but I don't know what it's from. I think the older I've gotten, most of them have come from if I have a weird feeling, like my chest hurts or something that
if you
seems
eat something bad.
Nah, I guess. I mean, that's more of a bathroom deal. But like, if I've got a weird pain in my body, it gets in my head, and then all of a sudden,
it's a tumor.
Yeah, it's a tumor. It's a heart attack. I got cancer, and so I start flipping out. It's not as bad as it was, but when it first really ramped up, I ended up in the hospital.
Really?
And of course, they told me there's nothing wrong with you.
It's in your head.
It's in my head. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, you're just not around me as much.
Yeah,
my calming effect on
you've
people.
never had a panic attack in your life, have you?
No.
No.
I don't know what one is exactly, but
I always thought people were full of it. I'm like, you got anxiety, dude. Chill out. Now I'm like, I'm done. So,
yeah, I've not felt like that. So maybe I haven't had one.
It's bad, man. It's
Really?
It's bad, but it's better than it was.
Okay.
So
what's the treatment?
Quit being a sissy.
Man up.
I think that's what Leland's advice. He said, because he said he had them before too.
Right.
And he says eventually you just get to the point where you realize, okay, this has not killed me to date.
Right.
So it's probably not going to kill me the next time. And I think that's what kind of leveled me out some. But I'm a basket case.
It's easy to. I think as you get older, though, maybe you start worrying about things a little bit more.
That's it. That's part of it.
Yeah, and you're just like, I know this is just not going to work.
Yeah.
Whatever. But I don't know.
Well, from when you and I worked together, we worked together from 2016 to 2018.
Is that when it was? So you remember?
Yes. That was the 2 years that I worked at Crawford, and it was...
was 2018 when that station changed formats?
Yeah. They cut the cord November.
I did not know that it was 18. I would have said 20. Are you sure?
I'm positive because they cut the cord.
Yeah, because the Trump election was in 16. Okay.
Yes, and they cut the cord the Friday before a Tuesday election.
Yes.
Well, midterm election. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and they gave us like a 2-month notice. They were like, hey, appreciate it, but how am I supposed to go do a show for 2 months knowing that you're firing me just in a few weeks?
But in the media, though, that's a pretty high compliment, frankly.
It kind of is.
Because they're like, oh, look, we know you'll do a good show. You're not going to burn the place down. You're not going to steal all the microphones.
Well, they said if you say anything about this, we're not going to give you your severance pay.
Oh, okay, I didn't have that deal.
It was one of those.
They're like, okay, well, Scott's not going to burn the place down, and we're not giving him anything else. So see ya.
But we had a lot of fun. We used to, as a matter of fact, this podcast is called Over the Line. Mm-hmm. And this was actually born with you when we were doing that Friday roundtable thing. We called it Over the Line, and that's literally what this is. It's crazy.
And part of that show is on my show every day.
Yeah.
Till this day.
With P. Diddy.
Yes.
Get here when you can.
With your boy. Just get here when you can, Scott Beason. Just get here when you can.
You would not believe him if you saw him. I mean,
is he giant now? How old is he?
He's probably he's a little shorter than me. He's 14.
Okay.
And, you've been through teenagers and stuff. I mean, you've still got teenagers, right? Mm-hmm. It's weird. I imagine in my head somebody that hadn't seen him in, 6 or 7 years would see him and they'd freak out. I'd be like, oh, my God.
I wouldn't know what he looked. I mean, I wouldn't recognize him.
No, you wouldn't.
I'm sure.
It's crazy. And teenage years sucks. This is why I'm freaked out. This is why I have panic attacks.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
Because back then, he was like my little best friend, and he was my shadow.
Loved you, thought you were the greatest.
And now I'm grown up and freaked out.
Dummy won't let me do anything. I can't do anything.
Right. I always
meanest dad.
worried about being the corny dad. All right, so we've had
So
friends
you wanted to
over.
be the cool dad?
I wanted to be the cool dad,
That
but
doesn't
also
work.
a stern dad. Not blur the lines of friend and dad, but
Right.
still be the cool
Yeah,
dad.
I'd like to know how you thought that was going to work.
Well, I got the cool job. I
Right.
got my own podcast. Like,
Right.
it just, I thought I had those things working in my favor. So I noticed when he has his friends around, I'll throw out some one-liners, and they're good. Like, they're funny.
Right.
And I get nothing. Nothing from him. Even, like, P. Diddy would laugh if it was just him. He would think those one-liners are funny, but
Right.
stone-faced.
No.
I'm like, your friends don't like me, do they? He goes, no, they like you. Don't lie to me.
You're all right. They're okay. He thinks you're all right.
Come on, man. I'm on the
You
radio.
gotta quote things from TikTok and Instagram or whatever. Reels.
You got a TikTok?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. You know how I'm exactly the way I was back then.
Yeah.
When y'all used to do your Facebook thing, and maybe you still do it. You Scott, you got to get on Facebook. You got to get on Instagram, and you got to get on what was it, Truth Social and Twitter and all that. So some of them I sign up for, and some of them I don't.
But you don't ever use
And
them.
I don't remember. No. Even to this day, they're like, you need to use them, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna. But
it's your personality. I wouldn't use them at this point.
But it'd be good for business.
It would.
It'd be good for the show. Some people like it. Number one, if I put something out there that I think, I don't want to argue with somebody. Call my show and argue with me so I can talk. I don't want to. Okay, look. I think here's the thing. It's from back when I was in the legislature.
Yeah.
So what I did is, if somebody wrote me a letter for the whole time I was there, 16 years, I responded. Now,
a letter, like a physical letter.
Or even if they called me, I would call them back. And when I got to the Senate and my profile started kind of going up a little bit, it started getting to be more and more than I just couldn't do it. It was all the time. Anytime I was in the car, I was calling people back. And I would prefer to call them so we could have a conversation.
And you're a talker on the phone.
Yeah, I do like to talk.
A lot.
That's why. Yeah, I mean, if you just stop now, I can fill
I
up the rest
know.
of
I got to make sure to break it up.
Yeah, I can finish the show. But because when you start typing stuff, and I kind of see it the same on social media if I'm responding, you got to get the commas in the right places.
Oh,
you got to
yeah.
have the complete sentences. You don't know how the tone is. And because I would get I'd send something back to somebody on email, and then I would see it somebody would say, it's on this forum. I guess that was kind of before Facebook or whatever. And I'm
Yeah.
like, see, they've taken a sentence out, and they're like, what a jackhead, jerk off. He look how mean he was. And then I went to a function one time. Teachers were there, and I had written an op-ed, and they were just ripping me for having a comma or two in the wrong place.
Oof.
And I did make the mistake of saying, what do you expect? I was publicly educated.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that went over like a...
There you go.
But they deserved it. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
if they're
yeah.
saying, you're an idiot and you don't even know how to do regular grammar, I'm like, y'all taught me.
Nobody on social media uses correct grammar, so now
No.
you just kind of blend in.
You just blend it in.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So I avoid it. I just rather talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Call the show and let's talk it out.
I'm a big texter. I'd rather text.
You would rather text than talk?
Yeah, because I had to
But
talk
when
all
they
day.
argue, you don't get to say, hey, but did you know this and this? And
Well, I just
and they're
stopped
usually
talking.
like, no. And you're like, well, if you knew that, would you agree with me?
Yeah.
No, most of the time.
I don't know. I don't argue with people. I mean, I barely take phone calls on the show.
Really?
And people get so mad about it. And I'm just like, well, one, I've got my producer. His name's, John Bird.
I do,
You
yeah.
filled in not long ago. John Bird is a very special human being. I love him. I wouldn't want to have anybody else.
Right.
But he's easily distracted.
Okay.
Especially when I got a lot of audio that I'm playing all the time. And
you're
he's
doing that yourself?
No, he's doing it.
Okay, so you gather it and
Yeah,
and
pass
get
it over to him, and then he's got other things he's got to do. And so if I put phone calls in that mix, I still take them from time to time.
Right.
But if I throw one more thing on him, then it's just kind of like, the chances go up that we're just gonna crash and burn. But again, I love John Bird. It's not a knock at him. It's just I've got more stuff that I put on him than the average show host does.
Right.
But also, I got this groove. When I started, I was at 2 hours, and I got it in my head that I've only got 2 hours. I got to get all of this stuff
Everything
in. I'm doing 4 or 5 hours worth of show prep. I want as much of it as I can on that show. And then we moved to 3 hours, and I still got that mentality. So I got a lot to talk about.
And you have a list, probably, right?
No, I don't.
How do you
I'm
keep up
weird.
with what you want to talk about? Because I don't do I'm still stream of consciousness.
Yeah. That's me too.
And if I start with this, and that's what I like about the callers, and if the caller gets me sidetracked or that reminds me of something that somebody said before, then we're headed down that rabbit trail.
That's where I don't take the phone calls, because I want it to all bleed together.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's
and
good.
so
That's why you're a professional. I'm still, just trying to get along in the radio
I just
world.
Want it at the end to be almost like a story time, 3-hour story time. I want one big story. I kind of like that. But I mean, Tony Gump knows my show prep routine probably better than anybody.
Right.
I sure do.
And it's all just kind of, I want it to
Tony's
flow.
like, what is he doing?
Yeah, he's a basket case. No wonder he's got anxiety.
If I didn't know him so well, I'd wonder, but I get it.
Yeah, he gets it. So for people that don't know Scott Beason, what's a little backstory? You spent a lot of time in the Senate until
I was 8 years in the House. Kind of term limited myself out. Ran for the Senate. Spent 8 years there.
So you did 16
years? I did
years?
16 years in the Alabama legislature. I was first elected when I was 28.
Really?
I was either one of or the youngest members of the legislature when I was first elected. I think they've had a couple of guys now that are younger, that have been younger.
28.
I first ran when I was 24.
He's trying not to get arrested at 28. That's crazy.
I was on a trip, and my family had always kind of discussed politics, talked about politics, never involved in politics, just, hey, can you believe this? What's going on? That kind of stuff. And somewhere along the lines, I made the decision that the only way things would be different in Alabama is if, people would vote different. And the only way I could make sure they voted the way I wanted them to vote was to be that person.
Yeah.
So when I was 24, I just went in one day, and it was the last day of qualifying. I really didn't know what any of it was, never worked on anybody's campaign. I looked, and there were 2 guys running for the House district that I could run for, and there was 1 guy running for the Senate. And I said, well, he ought not be opposed. I didn't even know who they were, and I ran for the Senate.
Dang.
And did pretty well up until about a week or 2 before the election, and they figured out that I might do better than they thought, and they just rained money down, crushed me, and I lost like 60-40. 4 years later, I ran for the House, and
we got a little name
won.
recognition after that first
I guess
round?
a little bit. I mean, I don't know how you get this. I mean, that campaign was, all right, I'm off work, go to ballparks and talk to as many people as I can. I didn't know anything about anything, and as far as campaigns go.
Right.
And then I won the House seat, and like I said, served 8 years in the House, and then went to the Senate, and then I was there when the Republicans took over in 2010, and we did a bunch of good things. I was the rules chairman for 1 year. Long story how that was only 1 year, but
you probably don't have to tell me the story.
Yeah.
I could probably figure it out.
Yeah, some of it. And the what did we do? We passed more pro-life bills than we ever had. I mean, we were genuinely conservative.
Yeah.
When the Republicans first took over, and then like so many other things, I think the folks who ended up being in leadership, I think it happens to every entity, whether it's a social club, a legislature, or whatever. You begin to lose focus.
Yeah.
And try to begin to worry about other things. But those first couple years, we did solid work. And I would say it is not 180 degrees, but
it's a little different.
120 degrees, 130 degrees in the other direction from where the supermajority of Republicans are today. I mean, they've passed so many things that, I mean, it wouldn't even have been considered to pass the largest gas tax in state history. I mean, those kinds of things. When we took over in 2014, gambling interest was like, oh, we're never going to win again. And, it was completely different. And then I have a friend who served a couple terms after I left, and he said one day he was in the hall when he heard one lobbyist, I think it was after the gas tax, tell another one, well, we are finally in charge again. Not we the Democrats or we the Republicans, we the lobbyists are finally in charge again. So it's kind of changed.
The Alabama deep state, if you will.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of is.
It really is. It's strange.
It's fascinating for me. You were such a responsible young man to be doing this at 24. That's crazy to me.
It was dumb.
Well, I mean,
you spend all your young years when you should be, doing better in business and all this kind of stuff down there, banging your head against the wall, and then all of a sudden you wake up like I am today, 54, and you're like, Dang.
Well, having no idea about what's what or how any of that works,
Right.
and to not get it the first time, but to get it the second time, like that's kind of a big deal. I mean, if you
I
ask
was
me.
blessed. There's no doubt about it. I was very, very blessed, and we did a lot of good things. I mean, there's things that I regret. What's one of the biggest ones? I had Common Core right there. Could have killed it, and we wouldn't have it, and it would be over. Pre-K was right there at one time, and I let somebody talk me into, hey, we'll do this later. Let this happen. Blah blah blah. Promise. Pinky promise. Swear on my.
Pinky promise don't mean anything.
Hope my
down there.
grandmother dies, and their grandmother was apparently already dead because they were
that old guy.
And so a couple times I trusted people and let things go that when I had them right where I needed them.
Yeah.
And we're still dealing with them today.
From what I know, you caught heat on several occasions down there, and I think it really resulted in you maybe doing the right thing, and even some of that backfired on you in the sense of trusting people. One of the things that always sticks out to me, and I even tell this story to people, is, and I had no idea things play out like this, but when you were down there, you either proposed or were supporting a pay raise.
Yeah, I voted for the legislative pay raise when I was first elected to the Senate.
And that, on paper, I mean, most people be like, well, those people down there don't need a pay raise. But then you gave me the reasoning for why you were voting for it. Now, you were attacked in the media, and I guess
lit me up
by your opponents and everything else. But explain why you were voting for this.
So in that term, I can't remember what the pay was. It was like $30,000, $32,000 or something. It was going to be sizable. It was basically indexed to the cost of living increase since the last time they had done it. But my feeling at the time, and I still believe it was the right thing, and there are things that I did when I was there that I'm like, that was dumb. I don't know if that would have worked out exactly right. But on that one, the goal for me was figure out a way that a regular person could actually serve in the Alabama legislature and support their family, pay their bills, be able to do all the things you're required to do. Because a lot of people love to say the thing about, well, it's a part-time job, it's a part-time job. Yes. If you're doing what you should do to keep up and know what's happening and staying in touch with the people in the district and all that kind of stuff, especially for a senator,
right?
It's not really a full-time job. People wonder all the time when they're like, well, I called my senator and he didn't know nothing about what I was talking about. Well, he doesn't. And that's part of the problem.
Right.
They're like, well, they're voting on bills. They don't even know. I'm like, no, they don't know. The only person that has time to read all these bills is the lobbyist that you hate. So just the time constraint. So the goal was to make it so that regular people can serve instead of wealthy people, retired people, or folks, legislators who are somebody's or some entity's boy.
So, yeah, because you've got to deal where if that's all if you're making this small amount and then a company comes over and says, hey, we'll put you on our payroll for X number of dollars, and then if a bill comes up related to us, you know which way to vote.
Yeah, and they don't ever have to say that.
Right.
Because they're paying you.
Yeah.
And that's what I asked people. I said, okay, look, people who are mad at me for it, I said, well, can I come work for you? And they're like, well, I don't know. And don't forget now, I'm going to be gone 3 days a week for at least 3 months every spring, at least 105 days. Okay. And then I got to go to some of these meetings 2 or 3 days a week, multiple times, and I probably need to have lunch with some folks multiple times.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to, I got to be out of town for a couple of these conferences because I'm on these committees. So you're going to get me about half the time. Can I work for you?
Yeah.
Well, the company who really needs you to work, the answer is no.
Right, because you're never there.
But the ones who need you to be their legislator, now we got a deal.
Yeah.
But I can't tell all that in a 30-second ad.
Now, was it a deal like where you say, all right, if we get a pay raise, people can't do this. People can't go work for these other companies.
There's no way you could make.
You can't regulate that.
You can make that happen. I mean, we try to do different things through the years. We tried to do what we called super double dipping, which is
sounds fun actually.
Not only could you, I didn't say skinny dipping, I said double dipping. Yeah. I said, hey, well, you can't. Not only can you not work for the state in some fashion, your business can't do work for the state, and your kids' business, your children can't work for the state. So So you don't have one of these situations where Senator X's kids have the great contracts, and that keeps everybody in line. Those kinds of things. Attorneys in the legislature wouldn't be able to work for the county back home, who's afraid to tell them, no, you can't work for us because they're the senator or they're the House member. So super double dipping was trying to get the elected officials totally away from the revenue streams that could come from government. And that was not popular either. That didn't.
That place is just dirty.
I mean, it's really not.
Feels dirty. I feel dirty talking about it.
It's got a creepy nature to it. I tell people, golly, I haven't thought about the legislature this much in a long time. It's not.
Welcome back.
It's not that people. Now there are some I think are corrupt. Okay.
Yeah.
And I've been around and know. But a lot of folks who end up going to the dark side are just weak.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to be legislators. It's basically they want to be homecoming queen.
Status symbol.
They want to be, homecoming king or whatever, most popular, whatever. They want to be that. And they want people to go, oh, Senator, you're so awesome.
Are these people that got beat up in high school? Is that the deal here?
I don't know.
They get picked on?
I don't know which part does it for them.
Yeah.
But they're really addicted to that, and they will do kind of whatever helps them stay in that spot. Not to necessarily get money, maybe not being extorted for having done something stupid, but they just really want to. I remember a statement somebody told me one time that this one guy lost his reelection campaign, and another elected official was like, I don't know what he's going to do. He's not a House member anymore.
Go get a job,
he's not a senator anymore. So all of his value was gone. And I'm like, he's still a guy. He's still a dad. He's still a citizen. He still, has a business. But what is he going to do? He's not a.
Part of that's probably getting invited to the parties or the dinners and stuff like that.
It's
just
all those things I didn't like.
Yeah. You weren't invited to any of those.
I used to struggle. You know how you see people and you're like, hey, it's good to see you.
Mm-hmm.
I asked my wife one time, I'm like, does that count as a lie? Because I can't stand them.
Yeah.
But you still say, good to see you.
Yeah.
And I knew they didn't like me either. But it is what it is. And, part of the issue is we just don't pay attention to what our legislators do, and we get mad at them. And if they had good support and they knew the people back home were still support them and they could stand against those special interest groups and still be okay, then they'll vote better. We just need more of a warrior class of people.
Yeah, and I think we're kind of on maybe not a state level, but on a federal level, I think we're kind of moving in that direction. Not very fast. We're not going to be there anytime soon, but we're seeing some of that. Now, I didn't mean to bring up all those bad memories from the legislature.
You're going to make me have an anxiety attack bringing all that stuff up.
The other part of Scott Beason is 1819 News.
Yes.
Which is our official partner at Talk 99.5. That's our news. And you do a podcast for them, which I've never been invited on that show.
Well, so that migrated from the podcast to, we have a radio program that's on a couple different places in the state.
Right.
The flagship for that is Montgomery Station. So people can listen there. But if they want to find me and what we do and all that kind of stuff, they can find us at AlabamaUnfilteredRadio.com or ScottBeason.com. They go to the same place.
Have you ever been to ScottBeason.com?
Yeah, it's a great site.
And that's going to say you're not a big internet guy. I didn't know if you'd been there.
It works. I mean, it works. I don't update it all the time. The dream was to have a little state news, a little national news, a little world news, hey, here's something for the show. And every day it would be updated with like 2 or 3 new stories.
Can we look at it now?
You can probably pull it up now. Yeah.
ScottBeason.com.
ScottBeason.com.
Here's what we're going to do, because I know you hadn't seen my website.
Oh, you probably have a swanky website.
We're going to compare websites here, okay?
Well, mine will be not as pretty. Mine is.
Look at that.
Mine's for thinking people.
That one looks looks much more responsible than mine.
And mine
like that's
is,
a grown up.
What do they call it? They call it. It is made for cell phones.
So
all the people out there listening to this podcast, whenever you air it, is it live or?
No, we're not live.
When
but
air
we
they can
after.
just pull ScottBeason.com or Alabama Unfiltered Radio up right there on their phone. If you scroll up a little bit, it's optimized. That's the word. Optimized. for mobile phone
That's
usage.
good. That's a good looking site. Yeah. It's the same way with ours. So all right, that's scottbeason.com. Now go to andrewmcleanwho.com. I go Andrew McLean Who because nobody knows who I am.
Right.
It's like Andrew McLean Who.
It's easier to find. Too,
Yeah. Well,
so,
andrewmclean.com was already taken.
Was it?
Yeah.
Well, they knew. They saw. And how much did they extort you for? Try to get it.
Oh, it was a lot of money.
Was it?
Yeah. So we
I
just
understand that. Oh,
well, my head's so big.
Yeah.
Anyway, accept the cookies. I promise it's not a virus. And
see, I've already said no.
See, this is where we put the podcast, but it's also
there's the brains behind the outfit.
It's got links to the radio show and the podcast of the radio show and everything else. And so these are some of the previous podcasts we've done. You see, Chris Hansen and Fannie Willis and all these different things, and so you'll be up there by the end of the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's better than most of those folks are better than I am. So
well, we
fill in.
We get creative. A lot of that's John Bird's work as far as the cover photos for those videos and stuff. So 1819, you got that. You got the radio show.
Mm-hmm.
Radio show is on. You're done by the time mine starts.
Yeah, I'm done at 12.
So you're 9 to
12.
Okay, well, you start before I get you end before I get up. I'm on 11 to 2.
Yeah, okay.
So what do we?
You're the old Rush Limbaugh.
Do we want to battle for that 11 o'clock hour? Because that's where I put my good stuff.
All my listeners just stay, and then they switch over.
Here's what happens on my show, because 11 o'clock, I can't start the show without talking about personal drama. Mm-hmm. So whatever's going on in my life, that's the first segment. Okay. I don't do any news. I'm talking about how my alternator just went out and everything else.
Did you get that fixed?
Yes, did that yesterday.
And you did it yourself? I mean, an alternator, that's not that bad.
Wow. I couldn't do it by myself. I had to have my buddy help me.
Why?
But
you didn't know what you were doing, or
no?
You didn't have the big braking bar to get the serpentine belt down.
We had No, we didn't have. We were using our hands for the belt. That was the hardest part.
Yeah,
I didn't have one of the big long.
I have tools.
Yeah, well, we had all the tools. We just didn't have that one bar to get the belt on.
So you didn't have the tools.
No, not that one. We had everything else.
The one that if you told me we got to put on a new alternator, I'm like, you better have this one.
Well, and I asked my buddy about it. He's like, "No, it's fine. We got it.
It'd be fine."
Then we almost got our fingers chopped off.
Yes,
from trying to pry that thing back. Anyway, my car's working and it's fine. Everything's fine. I know with our audience, some of our audience is not in Alabama, and they don't know anything about Alabama stuff. We don't talk about it a whole lot.
Right.
But there's a couple issues that are national right now that everybody's talking about. For instance, you were talking about the IVF thing, and it was on Saturday Night Live. First of all, I want to show the Saturday Night Live clip. Because I haven't watched it, and so
and you already knew it before I said something about it?
No, I didn't. That's the first I'd heard of it. Give us your version of this story that's happening. Like explain to the audience what it is, because I'm going to be honest, I don't really know a whole lot about it.
So the interesting thing about this, and I thought you were going to bring up the most famous news story that I was ever a part of in the Alabama legislature.
Which one?
Which was the anti-illegal immigration bill.
Oh, I mean, I'm good with that, too.
That was big news years ago, and I got to be I was on Morning Drive Radio in London 2 or 3 times.
Really? Is that on YouTube?
No, I have no idea where it is. I just did the show, and I had to wake up like in the middle of the night or the crack of dawn to do drive time radio.
Was that another one of those deals where you got caught a bunch of heat from the media?
Oh, my goodness, yes.
See, that's the stuff I want to see.
I was the biggest, terrible, they said I was the meanest person in the world. There were protests out in front of the
I want to
Capitol,
see the
and they
stuff.
had signs with my names, deport Scott Beason on it.
That's exactly what I want the stuff where they're hammering you. And it's got to be on YouTube or something. So what was the story on that? The anti-immigration bill? Why was it so bad?
So we passed the most comprehensive anti-illegal immigration bill in the country. It took the best parts of what everybody was doing in different places from Arizona, et cetera, and we put them all in there together.
And you spearheaded that?
Oh yeah, it was my thing. It ended up being called the Beason-Hammond Act, which was another behind the scenes what was going on, politics stuff that was going on between some of us in the legislature, and I mean it made news everywhere, and the press here in this state just hated it, and we were terrible. I years ago, this is a great thing. I was talking to a guy that used to be in the legislature with us when Florida and Texas started busing illegal aliens to sanctuary cities.
Right.
And I was like, that is not an original idea.
Well, you came up with that?
We were talking about it years ago, and I thought it was my idea, but it might have been one of my buddies. We're like, look, if they won't deport these people, we'll just, when we catch them here in the state of Alabama, we'll let them off at the embassy in Washington, D.C., and they can deal with them there. And, oh, my gosh, even Republicans, that is terrible. That's awful. Who would do that? That's just terrible. Fast forward a few years, and the same people are like, yay, Texas is so smart. They're better than we are. And I'm just like, it drives me crazy.
Yeah, that's got to tap your behind.
What happened? Al Jazeera came to my house one time. And
came to your house?
Yeah. Not everybody can say that.
And by the way, that's not a terrorist group. That's a media organization.
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows.
They actually were one of the most fair news outlets that I dealt with.
I could see that, actually.
Doesn't surprise me either.
Yeah.
And they were shocked. Dude, I think it was Al Jazeera that was like, we don't really understand why everybody's pitching a fit here, because no other country in the world just lets people wander in.
Right.
It's common sense. So anyway, but you wanted to ask about IVF.
Yeah. But that's interesting. I like that. So the IVF story, explain it to the audience in layman's terms.
Okay, it has become a national story in Alabama. The weird thing about it is, what so many people think has happened didn't happen. So IVF is in vitro fertilization. So I had a lady last week who said, I can't believe that what the legislature did. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she said, well, the legislature made it illegal to have in vitro fertilization. I'm like, no, they didn't. And then I had another lady who said, I can't believe what Alabama's done. And she had the same thing, because UAB says they're going to shut down their IVF services.
Just people calling your show, or just out
These
in
are
public?
people I see out in public.
Oh, wow.
And I said, no, that's not what happened. The state Supreme Court ruled, and they were trying to answer a question, because the question was, hey, look, if this clinic or this hospital or whatever has these fertilized eggs, embryos, their conception has occurred. Right. Sperm and the egg have come together. They have them frozen, and something happens to them. Basically, do they have any liability for it? And the state Supreme Court says yes, that under Alabama law, they're embryos, they're people.
Right.
And you have a charge to take care of them. So you can't just willy-nilly let something happen to them. If you did something negligent, then you're responsible for them.
Okay.
Not to mention the cost.
That makes sense.
But just the value of human life. These are embryos. So one of the people that asked me about it, they're like, well, I don't understand it. It's just frozen eggs. I'm like, no. It's not just the eggs, because they can take the eggs and freeze them, and they can take sperm and freeze and all that.
Yeah.
These have been combined. These are fertilized eggs. They're embryos. And a bunch of the mainstream media in Alabama, and now picked up around the world, has missed that whole argument. And all they're trying to say is Alabama is super crazy. And what are they doing? A bunch of legislators are knee-jerk reacting. But when you boil it down, not every issue is easy. But when you boil it down and you say, okay, these are fertilized eggs that would, it's the moment of conception. Just because they decided to do it outside the womb doesn't change it. What do you do with these?
That makes sense, because I'm thinking about, I know this is going to sound weird, but I'm thinking about brownies, okay?
Okay.
And, Trish can go in the fridge and she can throw away the milk and she can throw away the eggs. But if she's already made the brownies with those ingredients and throws the brownies away, I'm going to be upset.
Yeah.
Does that make
sense?
No,
actually, I'm going to take that, because it really is, because what the ingredients have been put together so that you got a brownie now. It may just be the brownie batter, but it's the brownie batter.
I'm so good at analogies.
Actually, you're making me hungry. But it does make sense, and a lot of folks have just decided, I don't even want to think about it. Because, and I understand that, but from an ethical, moral standpoint, we kind of have to think about it now. For years and years, we didn't. This case happened because there was a liability question.
Yeah.
That's what the debate was about. And I think the best argument is, just like a hospital, just like a clinic, whatever, whether that person's a baby, whether the person's an adult, whether the person's a senior citizen, those people are in their charge. They're responsible for them. If something crazy happens, they're responsible for that. And these embryos, they have responsibility to protect them too.
So I don't understand what the left has been out of shape about on this front. Did they just feel like it kind of hurts their abortion argument a little bit, or
yeah,
what?
I think they're kind of dancing on they realize it's a touchy subject. It's an emotional subject because when you have people who can't get pregnant or couples who can't have a child or whatever, and then you get somebody like UAB who stands up and goes, well, because of this ruling, we're going to shut it all down. I'm like, okay, well, I'll wait and see if you actually shut it all down. And then there's some questions in the process, and no one's answered them for me yet. We asked about this on my show. Kind of what it sounds like happens is they harvest a bunch of eggs from the potential mom or from the mom, and they get the sperm, and then they may fertilize a bunch of eggs. And so you end up with a bunch of fertilized eggs, and then they only take a portion of those for the in vitro process.
Yeah.
So you end up with maybe they implant 2 or 3, and you end up with 5 or 6 left. And then they could come back and use those again later, but you might end up with 2 or 3 left or a handful left. And that's kind of the weird question that none of us thought about until this happened. You just really literally didn't think, oh, well, they've got some leftover fertilized eggs, leftover embryos. And so Saturday Night Live has the skit where they're talking to and they got it right, which was amazing.
Really?
Because
It's not just some knock on Alabama with this skit they
it's
do?
absolutely a knock on Alabama.
Okay.
But they do show that it is a frozen embryo. They call him a frozen embryo. He's a guest on the show.
Oh,
from Alabama.
did they do that on accident?
I don't know. There's a good chance they didn't know what embryo meant. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, at the end of the day, this issue just seems like a technicality that needed to be taken care of. It wasn't some overreaching, dictatorial Supreme Court ruling that's just trying to ruin everybody's day. It just seems like
it's something we actually have to kind of deal with, I think. Yeah. And so I've asked, like, the scientific community, or we asked on the show. I was like, well, do you have to fertilize so many eggs? Do you have to create so many embryos? You remember when back in the day, and Tony might remember, he's a little older, when all these, not all these ladies, but every so often you'd hear about a lady that's having like 7 kids or 9 kids or whatever.
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
And the old technology was they just fertilized a bunch of eggs and they just put a bunch in, and every so often you'd get a bunch of them. And I know I'm not using the scientific terms, but tank. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Stick.
Swimmers.
A few of them would stick. And so the question is, well, can they look at a lady and say, okay, you theoretically could probably handle triplets. We're not saying you won't triplets.
Right.
But we'll fertilize 3 eggs. We'll do the process with those 3. If they all 3 stick, then you got triplets.
Here's 3. Best of luck.
If a couple of them don't, and you end up with 1, but then you don't have leftovers. And the best answer I've gotten from some of the scientific community and the healthcare community is, well, that's not the way we do it. Right. That's not an answer to the question.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's just not the way we do it. We kind of mix them all up and get as much as we can. I'm like, you know what I'm saying? There's only so many. We're going to make our brownies in these 6 cupcake, little cups, and we're mixing up 1.5 gallons. So what are we doing with all that?
Wow, that is kind of complicated.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the Saturday Night Live deal. I haven't seen it yet, but
well, don't expect it to be really funny. But at least they got the frozen embryo part right. But note how they talk about an embryo.
Okay.
That is a fertilized egg. That is after the moment of conception. The little flash of light has occurred.
That's pretty good that they likely accidentally made the point for the Alabama Supreme Court. All right, here we go. Was an accident for them to make that, hey, this is a person, because they then tried to make the argument that, they don't have a nose or a mouth or anything.
Right. They haven't developed.
I'm not a real live.
They haven't been cooked yet. They're not a real brownie.
Right.
It's just brownie batter.
Great. And then I saw another tweet.
But if you cook the brownie batter, brownie.
That's a real brownie.
Actually, I know you stumbled across it, Tony. He does stumble across them, but that's actually pretty good.
The brownie deal?
Yeah, the brownie deal, that makes perfect sense.
Well, we had brownies last night, and I've been thinking about it all day, so that's kind of how that came about. I came across this, and I only watched a couple seconds of it, but this is I wanted you to explain the IVF thing before I watch this in its entirety. This is Joy Reid talking about Tommy Tuberville, which is our senator. Mm-hmm. Do you know him personally?
I do.
Okay.
Well, I mean, not from the days, but he's been on the show a few times when he was running for the Senate. We got to talk, and I mean, I don't get a Christmas card from Tommy, but
he's a good guy.
I like him.
I've never talked to him.
He seems to be one of the straighter shooters in Washington, D.C. And
I feel that way too. Like, we need more
he's
people
not
like that.
afraid to say what he thinks. And if Joey Reid doesn't like it, he doesn't really care, I'm sure.
If you come from the outside, like outside politics, and work your way in, like I'm already giving you the benefit of the doubt, and then I'll get to know you after that, because that seems to be what's working for us. The people on the outside coming in, just like your argument of, the pay raise and bringing in people that, like, you don't have to be a millionaire to be able to have this job or whatever.
Yeah, and it's not rocket science. Just try to do what's right.
Right.
You just have some morals and some ethics and some values. You're going to get it right most of the time.
So here's Joy Reid talking about
she's gotten old.
the Alabama deal.
The United States has a population of north of 327 million people. Why do we need more kids? I mean, your party, Senator Tuberville, is the one screaming that 10 million immigrants, which I don't even know that number even makes any sense, because it doesn't, have streamed into the country since Joe Biden has been president, and you're claiming that that's too many people, that if more people come into the southern border, this is some sort of crisis because we've got too many people and we've got no more space and we can't afford more people. But now you're saying we need more kids? Can you explain who's the we and what's the purpose? You're also a senator from the state of Alabama. God help the people there.
Roll Tide.
Are you saying the state of Alabama needs more kids?
The frozen embryo says that,
Why
by
does
the
the
way.
state of
Oh, does he?
Alabama need kids for what? There was a time when the state of Alabama absolutely needed more kids because, Alabama was a slave state.
Oh, Joy! She finally
It
got
was
where she
for
always
black
ends up
women to
being.
produce more kids because those kids were property, and they could work more kids and make more money on their plantations. Are you saying the state of Alabama needs more kids because you think that those populations will include people who are maybe destitute and desperate enough if you kick out the immigrants like a lot of y'all want to do, and you could make them do the work that the migrants are doing now? That kind of sounds slavery-ish.
Slavery-ish.
Alabama, the we? And
I
it's
gotta say,
why?
it's, I know she's saying a lot of stuff, but this little deal she's got on the bottom row of her teeth where it's like a little chiclet hanging in there, it's so distracting. And I'm not trying to make fun of people.
Distracted me more. It looked like a big blue ring. Right?
Yeah,
right,
that
like
too.
A dot right there.
The black population, the Asian American population, and so the we is white people need to make white women have more kids, and that's the we, and that's the
Okay,
why.
time out again. I thought the knock was that we were getting rid of IVF, which would mean fewer kids.
Yeah,
Right.
that's exactly why I'm confused.
Joy, maybe. Well, look, it won't be the first topic that she doesn't understand.
She just doesn't like brownies.
Yes.
That's all it is.
She's against.
I thought she didn't like white people, but she doesn't like
brownies. No,
So-
it's tough for her. It really, really is. But
She's obnoxious.
That I didn't understand that argument either. It's weird though. It's like the folks on the left have been told to be angry that Alabama has done something, so they just ran out and decided to be angry. And when you try to track down what they're angry about, they don't know. They're not really sure.
Gosh, people are out of their minds.
They don't want to think about any of these issues. One of the writers at the old, what's the old paper? Birmingham News. I guess it's AL whatever now.
AL.com.
AL.com.
That whole thing.
Did you say .con?
.com. .con. .con's good. I like that. I like it.
They they kind of said, it was like clean up on aisle 1 or whatever.
Yeah.
That, you drop all the little petri dishes or the little frozen tubes with the eggs, just with the embryos, just clean up on aisle 1.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
Mm.
Okay, yeah, no value whatsoever.
Yeah,
None.
these are the same people that were promoting walking one way down a grocery aisle when COVID was here because it was going to keep you from getting sick.
What? What is that?
Exactly.
That's where they were.
That was so awful. I don't even want to think about that.
Golly.
The other thing on the Alabama side of things is the gambling bill. And Leland this afternoon had a former Supreme Court justice from Alabama on. I don't
Bowen?
remember his name. I don't
Mike
think
Bowen?
so. Maybe. I don't know. I don't remember. But again, people know me, and they know I don't get deep into state politics and all that. So it's good to be able to bring you on and kind of break it all down for a minute. I'm going to say on its face, when it comes to the gambling bill, I think we got bigger problems. I don't care one way or another, but I do view this twofold. One, who does this negatively affect? It negatively affects poor people because poor people are the one, spending their money on this, hoping to get a big payday.
It affects you too, though.
Well, my other side of that is
I gotta come by and steal your lawnmower.
Well, that's true.
Because I'm upside down.
That's true.
And so
the other thing,
maybe your car's got an alternator. I can drive it off now.
Brand new, by the way.
It's worth more.
But at the same time, I'm kind of from the frame of mind of I don't want the state telling people, you know,
the
you can't do
libertarian
X.
side.
Yeah, kind of like that. But what's your pitch on this?
Yeah. So I've been through all the different years, kind of thought about this a lot. And some of the things I was involved in when I was with the legislature had to do with gambling.
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard a lot of the explanations and said, hey, what about this and what about that? And, you know, been told, oh, no, it's not the poor who are frequenting the casinos or the bingo halls or whatever. And I'm like, well, you know, okay, great. So let's come up with an idea that says, hey, if you're on state subsidies in any way and you win a certain amount of money, then you got to pay some back to the state because you were gambling the taxpayers' money, not your money.
Right.
That did not go over well either.
I bet.
That was frowned upon in this establishment. That one was one.
You're just constantly getting in trouble just for doing the right thing.
One of my other questions was, and I still ask this one today, and I think Alabamians really ought to think about it. The reason we don't have widespread gambling in the state is we have a constitutional prohibition against it.
Mm-hmm.
Most states had constitutional prohibitions against gambling, not only because they were all Puritans, right-wing Christians, but I mean they leaned that way. But the reason so many states had prohibitions on gambling is they had already tried this before.
Yeah.
This is a second or third phase of gambling in the United States, and then when it would go all awry, they would say, hey, we got to put a stop to this. This is causing problems everywhere. So that's how you ended up with these prohibitions. Not because everybody was trying to be so pure. They lived it, and they saw the negative outcome, and they said, you know what? This is just not good for our communities and society in general, so they made it illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've forgotten about that now because we've moved, 100 years out. And so now we're like, oh, yeah, we'll use it to pay our bills. Then you have the problem with the libertarian side. We don't live in a libertarian culture. So if I go out and ruin my life, lose my paycheck, don't take care of my kids, have to steal from you to pay my bills or steal from you to go do, the state steps in. And we take care of everybody that has those problems. People that don't take care of the kids, we take care of the kids. The more police force we have to have out there, the more problems we have, we've got to take care of that too. There's a tremendous cost to the do nothing, to the be libertarian about it, and people forget about it. So from a general welfare standpoint, the negatives outweigh the positive. But we're Alabamians, and one of the things we love to say is, I do what I want. Don't stop me from doing it. So here's my proposal for all those folks. The Constitution says you can't have games of chance. If the legislature was being philosophically pure, that we would vote on a constitutional amendment that simply removes that prohibition. It just takes it out.
Mm-hmm.
What does that do? That allows me and you to have Andrew and Scott's casino, Andrew and Scott's lottery, Andrew and Scott's, raffle.
Where everybody loses. Scott and Andrew are the only ones that win.
But you and I can do it. Tony and I can do it. Tony can do it by himself. So-and-so down the street can do it. All of us can do it. And we'll pay taxes, and we'll pay taxes through the nose to the state. But that's not what's being proposed. So what they're doing is they're betting on Alabamians going, I do what I want, while still keeping them from doing what they're going to do.
So
a handful of people get to do what they want and extract millions of dollars out of the people of Alabama, while we think as people, by golly, we're going to get to do what we want. We can't have that business. You and I are told, no, we can never have that business. So we think we're getting some sort of liberty when actually they're getting a special deal and become wildly rich off of it. And what do we get?
So in this bill, they're saying, let's legalize gambling. But when you look at the details, it's like, but only these guys over here can operate.
These people can do it. These people can do it. These people can do it. And these people can do it. And they get away with it. One of these like, well, anybody could as long as the commission says yes, and you're going to spend $25 million and all that kind of stuff. Well, who do you think gets on the commission?
See, nothing's ever as.
And do you think they're
going
to let me and you? And that's the thing is, I don't want it. But here's the other part. I think it was South Carolina. I don't know who remembers it. It wasn't called Blinko because that's where you just drop the thing and it
Plinko,
hits all the nails, or maybe it was Plinko. But I think it was South Carolina, and whatever their video gambling thing was, everybody could do it. Okay, so there was no kingpin. There was no handful. There was no oligarchs who said, no matter what, we'll spend millions of dollars to make sure we all keep this. Everybody was doing it. Well, the state comes along later and says, you know what? This is not good. They got rid of it. Now imagine Mississippi with the handful of people who have the casinos. If they decided today to get rid of it, could they ever get that through the state legislature? No. And then back during the quote on days when I dealt with gambling, I was like, well, let's let everybody do it. And they said, no, you can't do that. I said, why? I mean, that's freedom. It causes cannibalism. I said, what are you talking about cannibalism? Well, if everybody's getting money, nobody makes any money. I'm like, what's wrong with that? You see what I'm saying?
Are there outside influences from now? For those that don't know, there's no gambling in Alabama, but next door Georgia there is, and next door in Mississippi.
Well, the Indian reservations.
Well, outside of that,
Creeks have it.
Are there influences from each of those states putting efforts into Alabama to prevent it over the years, or is that just
there's always people saying that, whatever. Probably, technically, there's probably some folks that don't want, Biloxi would probably get hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
Because people wouldn't continue to travel over there. But I got to also think that a lot of people who can really go and lose a bunch of money, because they don't build those buildings off winners. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You winning a lot of money does not build that casino.
No.
And they're not trying to be in the business to help you keep your money.
Right.
There's probably a little bit of that, but most of all this is driven by people who think they're going to be one of the chosen groups. And then there's a lot of money.
So what do you think's going to happen? Because this is, in order to change the Constitution, you have to send that to the people, and the people have to vote. What do you think's going to happen on that front?
I don't know. I think the people of the state, and I think it's a bad idea. I don't like the way it works, but I do think the people of the state would vote to legalize a lottery.
Yeah,
they would, because everybody kind of thinks that's benign. But again, we missed the big topic, because the lottery. We think of the lottery. Most of us think about it. Hey, I'm going to go buy a handful of tickets or a couple of tickets because I'm going to win part of $900 million. I think most of the money in the lottery is made off the scratch cards.
Yeah.
Those are the addictive part. Those are the things you just get a card and get another card and get another card. And you won $25, $50, just keep getting the cards. And all of a sudden, at the end of the day,
you got nothing.
You're broke again.
Yeah.
And what do you tell your friends? I won $500. Well, where is it?
I spent it on the cards trying to win more.
I want to make $1,000. So, and that's what they would be legalizing, the whole thing. And then you've got the whole idea that most of the states who have lotteries, most of their advertising is in the poorer parts of town because they're promising people, hey, come play this and we'll help you get out of poverty. You'll win your way out of poverty. So to me, it's just like one of those where, hey, look, we have a responsibility to look out for others. And I hate the term people call, what's a stupid tax? If you're stupid enough to lose your money, then fine, we'll take your money. I kind of have an issue with, hey, just because somebody's stupid enough to do that doesn't mean I have to help them do that and hurt their family.
So if they vote, if we vote on it as Alabamians and they legalize gambling, will you promise Alabama to run for office and then reverse it immediately on day one?
I'll be opening a casino and a lottery.
Andrew and Scott's Casino.
I used to think that the best way for me to put all this to bed was to actually try to start one that was mine.
Yeah.
So that all the forces arrayed against me would crush it, and when they crushed me, they would crush all the other gambling entities.
That's true. They would immediately come after it. They'd be like, oh, Beason's got a casino. It's a bad idea.
He can't have a casino.
Get rid of it.
Only a couple of people get one.
Well, I appreciate you coming by, man. I know it's not easy to do. You're a busy man. We've been talking about this for a while.
We have. I mean, look, I'm just glad that I finally got big enough for you to say, hey,
Big
can you come on
enough.
my podcast?
How many radio stations are you on?
Dozens and two.
How many am I on? I'm on one.
But it's big.
That's big, but I'm on one.
But the one, maybe the one in the river region might go further in miles. It's flat down there.
Well, here's
But you're
what
on a big station.
Here's what you got to do. Now that you've been on this podcast, you have to turn around and promote it. You got to tell your audience about
it being on the podcast?
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Say I'm
How do
on
I
YouTube.
get there?
Andrew
McLean who?
Yeah, you could go to my website, or you could just go straight to YouTube.
Okay.
I don't know how. I'll write
Tony
you a
will
script.
tell me. He knows how to do
I'll
all
write
this
the script
stuff.
for your audience.
I'll take care of it.
And
Very
then
good.
we want to bring some of the other 18, 19 guys on here too. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
So
That'd be good.
and we're
They
thinking
won't be near as entertaining as I am, but that's all right.
probably not. I think our next week we're shooting to get Alex Jones on the show.
I mean, Alex, he has his reach.
Hey, and he's.
I would love to see that.
That would be funny.
I would love to know somebody who actually knows him.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
I mean,
our
he was
dream.
right about the gay frogs.
Yeah, he was. He was
And
actually.
they mocked him for years. And they're like, oh, the rest of the story.
There you go. Now
He's
half
been
the
right
country's
about a
trans.
lot.
He's right about a lot.
Hey, look, speaking of the rest of the story, last thing. Did y'all see this? Maybe you had it on the show today that the, what was it? The guy that was supposed to be Putin's big rival that died and Shirley Putin poisoned him and all that last week. Putin didn't poison him, apparently. He had a blood clot or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't see
some
that.
Ukrainian defense official says that. And I'm like,
Well,
so
yeah,
we
that's
spent
not a good look.
a whole week saying poison, killed your opponents.
Right.
Who's dying of blood clots lately?
Everybody that
Somebody got the.
leathery ones, because we did have that guy on our podcast.
Yeah.
The other
yeah.
one was, this is the other good one. This is for the nerds, because I do a lot of international affairs stuff. Remember when Syria supposedly gassed all their people, like in 15, and we were supposed to basically assassinate Assad? Was it Assad?
Right. Yeah.
Because he's a terrible human being.
Correct. Yeah.
Like yesterday or today, some UN group said, we think it was probably ISIS.
Yeah. We don't believe.
Can you
any
believe
of that.
it?
I mean, it's
can't
why we went
believe
to
it.
Iraq. All this stuff, like it's all lies. You can't believe any of
It's
it.
crazy. That's why I go to your podcast.
That's it. This is where all the answers are.
got it.
Everything you ever need to know, right here. So, Scott Beason, I appreciate it, buddy. We'll bring you back on sometime soon. We're gonna do this
Thanks,
again,
Andrew. I
especially
appreciate
when
it.
it comes to state stuff, because I have no idea what I'm talking about.
After I already told you.
You just come, yeah. And now I know.
Why am
but
I the state guy?
You're right.
Just because I have to be.
You
I
know,
got it.
you
All
know
right.
everything. All right, Scott Beason, thank you. We're out of here until next time. See you, cuz.